Hello everyone, thank you for joining us on this edition of The Inside. I am Babla Jonathan. Today we are looking at the state of the nation ahead of the forthcoming presidential election in the Republic of Cameroon. We are also looking at the situation of thousands of Cameroonians facing deportation as the Trump administration decides to end the temporary protected status TPS for Cameroonians in the United States of America. We'll also be looking at some issues concerning bilateral ties between Cameroon and Israel, how the two countries are strengthening the bilateral cooperation, and also issues concerning the state of Israel fighting the Hamas terrorists and the hundreds of thousands of persons who have been killed in the context of that fight between the state of Israel and the Hamas terrorist organization. Thank you for staying with us. Meet our guest in some few seconds. Once more, thank you for joining us in today's edition of the program. Our guest today is a barrister, AKUFOR ANENEBA, attorney and counselor at law and major proponent of decolonization, author of the book, The Land Will Leave Behind. He's joining us from Atlanta in the United States of America. Barrister, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Mr. Babila, and to your esteemed team at Equinoxe. It's always a pleasure being on set with you. And hopefully we get to deliver a very enjoyable program to our audience tonight. Thank you so much.
Right, let's begin by analyzing the state of the nation ahead of the forthcoming presidential election in Cameroon. The presidential election that should be coming up by October this year in your home country is an election with a lot of stakes. And there is some sort of tension in the air a few months to the presidential election, and calls rising to the sky from within young persons, old persons, and just everywhere, calling for change at the helm of the state, change at the helm of the governing mechanism, change in the governance of the country, and this with regards to the precarious, poor, and difficult living conditions of many Cameroonians and the many socio-political, economic, and security problems affecting the nation for the past more than 4 decades that the current regime has been in power. Barrister ANENEBA, what's your reading of the current situation in Cameroon, the state of the nation?
Yes, once again, thank you so much for the opportunity to air my views about Cameroon. I'm a national of Cameroon. That's where I was born, and nothing can take that away from me and from anyone else. So looking at Cameroon, you're looking at you know, a system of government that has, through decades of persistent presence in the law and the galore of the people, has not actually delivered what the people aspire for. And this brings me to a system of government called oligarchy, because you know, 2,300 years ago, you're looking at, because this, what I'm trying to say is a system that fits perfectly with what's ensuing in Cameroon today. 2,300 years ago, Aristotle in politics described 3 forms of government. I mean, actually 6 forms of government. You have the true forms and the perverted forms of government. You had the monarchy, you had the aristocracy, and you have polity, which is the third one, which is a mixture of oligarchy and democracy. That's where Cameroon actually fits into this particular dispensation. If you're looking at where we are about 60 years after independence, you know, that outreach has been debilitating. It is worse, it is timed, that we thought independence would be a quick fix, but it has not been. We have actually retrogressed. If you comparatively look at these societies with other societies side by side. So, because our system of government has been taken over, as Aristotle said, by oligarchs. Now, oligarchs, meaning in this particular situation, where the rich and the powerful, the landed, the wealthiest people within a particular society, they control the entire system. Because if they write the laws, they make the policy, and they use their wealth to run the society the way they want. I mean, they will tell you that they have gone through the democratic process, they've won it through the ballot. But again, you don't take that dispensation to be something that if you win at the ballot, then you decide to do whatever you do as a payback for you to for winning power. So that's where we find ourselves 60 years after, or more than 60 years after independence, because we have not moved forward. If you look at the social human index in Cameroon, it is compared to countries that were in the 70s, right behind Cameroon. And if you're looking at the social progress of Cameroon, it is absolutely debilitating. So the malaise in the society, you're looking at young people, they stymied in a culture that they cannot find themselves moving forward to a social structure that makes them benefit from the whatever is that glorious country gave to them. They find themselves in the gallows of poverty and retrogression. So I am looking at, you know, a system where the young people can actually be inculcated in this particular system to be governors, to be rulers, and not people to be dictated onto, because we're looking at the past coterie of leaders in Cameroon. I think they're old, they're tired, and I think they should absolutely give way to a newer generation to run and move the country forward. They've done their time. We applaud them for what they've done, you know, and if it's time for them to leave, they should leave and let the stage set it for other people to take over and run the country in a much more perfect way. Don't tell me that my grandfather or your grandfather is still suited to run the country. I think nature itself tells you at a certain point in your life cycle, it becomes inevitable for you to not to run again, because human progress, according to Dr. Martin Luther King, never rolls on the wheels of inevitability. You know, they should not tell you that you should wait for your time. The young and the energetic should tell them that they've waited a little bit too long. Let your time has come and gone. Let me take over and run the country properly.
You're talking about, you mentioned grandfather. I guess you're talking about the President of the Republic, Paul Biya, and the Constitution of the Republic, the internal rules and regulations of his political party, the CPDM, and even international human rights instruments allow him, permit him to stand for re-election. Are you saying that he shouldn't stand, he should step aside?
No, I'm not specifically calling on the President of the Republic. I think it's a generalized statement about people who've gone through their prime. You know, I think I'll quote you a very perfect example of 3 leaders in Africa that have actually defined what Africa is supposed to be. There is Nelson Mandela, there is Robert Mugabe, and there was the late Thomas Sankara. If you look at Nelson Mandela, he suffered in prison because he was fighting for a democratic process in his country. He was released from prison. He could have ruled South Africa until he died, but at a particular point, he said it, and he said it openly that, I think it's time for me to leave. Let me let this stage for a much more younger and energetic person to run, and he gave over to Thabo Mbeki. Now, you look at Robert Mugabe, when he fought, went to Lancaster House, and you know, won independence for Zimbabwe. He ruled, and he was absolutely adored by his people. But he stayed for so long, for too long. And you see where he ended. He died at a hospital out of Zimbabwe. Then you look at the Thomas Sankara. That was, you know, that was somebody who defined my own generation growing up in Cameroon. You know, he was beloved just as the current leader of his country is beloved. You know, but what happened to him? He was killed. He was murdered by a close associate of his. So what I'm saying is, if you look at these three people that I just mentioned, there are more in Africa that we can allude to. But if you look at these three, I think it gets to a point where you realize that my time has come, it's gone. Let me step back and let a much more energetic generation take over the country. Because if this is not aristocracy, if it is not a monarchy, if it is not a tyranny, if it is not a democratic society, then it is an oligarchy, which is running Cameroon, because a very few select individuals with enormous wealth and power they write the laws, they make policy, and they run everything. So Cameroon, like, it's a payback for them to absolutely get exact what they did in order to get themselves into power. So it is not just some particular person that we are mentioning here. It is the system itself. The system is old, it is opaque, and it is something that has to, be retired into the gallows of history and let a younger generation come over and take over. Because you can write the laws. I mean, Adolf Hitler came to power through a democratic process. Mussolini, they all came to power through a democratic process. So the fact that the laws are written for somebody to stay in power doesn't necessarily mean that he has to stay in power. Look at your country. Love this country. Look at tomorrow. What legacy do you leave? Will history judge you well if you are gone? I think that's what we should be looking at in Cameroon at this particular point in our history, so that we chart a much more amenable course that it leads for a much more better generation. We've seen Ghana. Ghana went through changes in government. They might not be perfect, but it's a much more appealable society for investment and, for progress. So we should emulate such examples by a change in government.
You're highlighting some of the ideas mentioned in your book, The Land We Leave Behind. Now, what's your perspective of the tension characterizing the political landscape in Cameroon a few months to the presidential election?
Yes, Mr. Babila, in that book, The Land We Leave Behind, I actually, in a particular chapter, I cannot remember specifically which one, but what I said was, we thrive on the altar of ideas than in the trenches of invectives. So if your idea wins over the society, so be it. But again, it shouldn't be that your ideas win as a popular politician or a popular person within the society in Cameroon. You win power and you use the fact that you've won power to exact or as a payback for you running your campaigns or whatever you did in order to get to power. So again, we want to chart a course that it's reminiscent of how societies have moved forward before. We shouldn't. Today, societies are driven by artificial intelligence. Society is driven by a much more sophisticated technical development that our young people, they are masters of. But you have to give them that opportunity. You have to give them that space to operate. But the laws that have been written to keep the same system in power and unchecked would never leave these people to be progressive. It leaves them to savour, and they are self-devoured back into the system that's actually supposed to prop them up. So it becomes a normless, a classless society, as Dupin said. And so I think it's high time we should look at being patriotic, the love for country, the love. I mean, if you say Cameroon first, or your country first, not any other country, then you should not let foreign legislators dictate what laws are written in your constitution. Or you shouldn't write laws that stymie freedom of expression. People should be free to express themselves. People should not talk, then you take them and you lock them up. No, I think that's tyranny, and it's not something that this modern society should actually appreciate.
Barrister ANENEBA, the multi-million-dollar question now is how to get to that point of change, how to get to that point of a better situation, a better Cameroon, how to get there. October 7 is not far. It's just about 6 months or so from now, and Cameroonians will be called to carry on with their responsibility, their duty of voting those or the one they want to lead their country. But there are a lot of concerns about the transparency of the election or the electoral process, concerns about credibility, concerns about the institution, concerns about quite a good number of things, even the electoral court.
Well, again, if you leave a system in power and unchecked for too long, that's exactly what you find. Because these iconoclasts, they find ways to write and perfect the system to suit their purpose. They stymie all opposition. The only time that they were caught off guard was when the SDF, the Social Democratic Front, was created. That's when there was a popular uprising, and the late John Frunze, you know, he caught the attention of the masses. It's only through a popular revolution like that that you can absolutely, you know, change the system of government in Cameroon. We can go through the ballot, and that's where you go. There must be a leader who inspires the masses. But if you look at Cameroon, you really don't see it. You really don't see. You get a few of them that they can inspire people, but they have the limitation because they don't have the finances to actually run the campaigns and actually get people to the polls, because that's the only way you can do it. Mr. John Frunze, he had people who were supporting him. And again, the system was caught off guard. They perfected it all through the years by their electoral codes, you know, the ELECAM and all other agencies of government that shroud this particular process that's coming up in October. And if it's a fair and clean process, I think there might be a change in Cameroon. But if the system is the way it is, it will be absolutely difficult for you to change it. It has to be a leader who is charismatic, somebody who goes through all the provinces, all the regions in Cameroon, and campaigns and tells the people exactly what his dream is. You know, that will be at the risk of, you know, many other things that might happen to you. We remember when John Frunze was shot in Bafoussam earlier when he was running his campaigns, you know, because they would not let him campaign. So you need somebody who can actually inspire people, stand up, rise up, and talk to the masses. Go from place to place. Go to people, talk to your masses, tell them exactly what you would do different from this particular government. There are many. When John Frunze said that we boycott French goods in Cameroon, we boycott foreign interests, certain things that resonate with the people, because this is still neo-colonialism that is existing. The current system, all they're doing is bidding for the West. That's what they're doing. But if you have a popular leader who tells you that we are bringing Cameroon back to Cameroonians, we are bringing Cameroon back to what it was prior to independence, we rewrite Cameroon from there, I think you stand a chance of toppling this government. But if you leave it the way it is absolutely difficult to go through that process, because they control all the rungs of power, from the military, the police, everything, they have it. So the judicial system we saw in the last election where, they went through due process, but again, we don't know who won, but the government, the current government, they were declared the winners of the election. So it might still be the same thing this time, but again, you need a popular revolution. We're not saying it's a violent revolution. We need a popular, even if it's a sit down. In India, we saw it, we've seen it, where just a sit down, we are sitting down, we are not going to work, the government will crawl into its knees. I don't think the military will go down and kill everybody in Cameroon. I don't think so. If you decide that everybody is not going out to work today, that government will crumble in a month's time. and that will be it. There will be change without a gun being shot, being fired, because, I mean, everybody who is within the military, they are all your brothers and your sisters. Something that we all know what's going on in Cameroon, and it's not something that it's been hidden behind a veil. So I don't think they would go out and, I mean, these are people that if they see when the system is about to crumble, they themselves, they will give way for a much more popular and energetic leader to run Cameroon.
And from what you're saying now, and in my understanding, we're not calling for any violence, we're not calling for any destruction, but you're talking about a revolution that is void of violence. Is that?
Oh, yes, because you see, the democratic process itself, you know, the democratic process itself, you think that it will lead to a real leader coming to power. But the way, if you look at James Madison, who is considered the author of the American Constitution, when they were writing, the American Constitution, they call it the opulent of the minority. So it was written for the aristocrats, the landowners, and the very rich people to maintain their dominance over the masses in America. That was the American Constitution, the concept of the opulent minority. It's exactly the same thing in Cameroon, where you have a few people who run the entire system. You know, so if you saying that we would go through that particular process to get change in a particular country, it will be extremely difficult, except the masses, you know, they come out and say, please, it is time for us to have a change in government. You don't need violence. I don't think so, because if you've had it for so long, you don't even need violence to change a government, and it is not something you should even aspire to, because it will only lead to more bloodshed, and the reason and the result thereof for these people to maintain their grip on power, they will tell you, okay, they're trying to quell the system, they're trying to maintain law and order, and in that process, you know, they quell that popular uprising. So don't go for violence, go for peaceful manifestations and persistent. You have to be persistent in order to change a system, change a particular system. We've seen that, like the Arab Spring, there was a popular uprising, dictators fell. You know, we've seen it in Europe, we've seen it even in America, where in the early days of the revolution, you know, people just did not sit. And I'm telling our people, don't be the proverbial Rip Van Winkle, who sat and the revolution passed them, you know, where he went and slept at the top of the mountain, and when the time he woke up, by the time he went up the mountain, the ruler of America was King George, and by the time he came back, the ruler of America was George Washington. It's a different George with an entirely different system. So don't sleep through the revolution. Go through this particular process, make your voices be heard. If it is through the ballot, come out en masse, vote for a particular candidate that you think conjures the sentiments of the people and is aspiring to uplift the society for tomorrow, not taking the society back to the people that think they are the rightful owners of African country, which is the old colonial powers, because they have structures set already that needs to be dismantled. And if you cannot go through that process, there is no way Cameroon is going to change for a much more better future.
Right, let's take a look at what the newspapers reported this week, and we'll be right back in some few minutes. The press review. Right, Barrister, can you just shift back a little bit? Don't come too much in front, because you seem to be cutting your head. All right, you're welcome back. Now let's talk about the decision of the Trump administration to end the temporary protected status, TPS, for Cameroon's situation affecting thousands of Cameroonians in the United States. Barrister, ANENEBA, AKUFOR, you are an immigration law expert. What is your understanding of this decision?
Yeah, I think the Trump administration, what they've done to to Cameroonians that I know in particular, because I mean there are people. I think it is not right because they were due that particular protection here in the United States, during the Biden administration. And I don't know if conditions have been ameliorated in such a way that these people are free to go back. The one thing about TPS, which is, it is temporal, it is the Secretary of Homeland Security that decides which country is a designee of that particular protection. So if the president is saying Cameroon is no longer worthy of being protected, you have to look at the conditions on the ground. I think there are still areas that even the Americans in their advisory tell you not to go. So if Americans cannot go, then I think Cameroonians too cannot go to those places. Then not to talk of somebody who had sought protection in the United States because they were fleeing persecution. That's the reason why they came to the United States. Some of them won the asylum applications, some did not win. Then you refile those people back to that same country where they were facing persecution. I think in all human nature and decency, it's not the right decision. I just think and I pray that the president of the United States might rethink that particular decision and give those Cameroonians that are here a little bit of time again to get their act in order. Because if you strip them of that particular relief, there are thousands of them, as you rightly said, that come June 7, I think that's the right date, will be removable. But again, you have to understand that the government would always come with a justification that these people, they were already in removal proceedings. Some of them, they've gone through the entire due process. They've gone through the courts. They've gone through the appeals process, and they lost their cases. And they were ordered removed. They just never left the United States. But the question is, they're leaving the United States to go where? Because if you're claiming persecution in a particular country and you lose your case here through the court system and they order you removed, then except your asylum claim was non-frivolous, then there is just no reason for you to be sent back to that same country again, because the reason why you left, that reason there has not been a fundamental change in system in Cameroon. If there was a change in government in Cameroon, then you can say, okay, yes, the atmosphere is ripe enough for these people to go back because the system that was persecuting them is no longer in power. But we have the same people, the same agencies, the same institutions. They are still there and they are strong. And to the best of my knowledge, I don't know what they will do to these people when they come back, but I'm praying that the government and the good people of the United States can rethink their decision and offer the Cameroonians a little bit of protection again.
So, Barrister, what is the situation now? What is happening as far as that is concerned?
Well, again, as I said, these people had gone through due process. And what actually I know is going on, or I've heard is going on, I'm not directly involved, they people lobbying congressmen and senators to get through to the Department of Homeland Security, the National Security Council, and the State Department to say that the conditions back in the ground, they're not as fertile as the Trump administration might be thinking. There is still tension. There are still areas that there are no go, especially those two regions, the northwest region and the southwest regions of Cameroon, where there is armed conflict. There is still, because we still see people, being killed. You still see the military still fighting with the population, and people, there is still no quiet in that particular place. So I don't see any reason why these people should be sent back to a place where they face persecution. But again, that will depend on the U.S. government whether they would reauthorize TPS or not. But from what I know, it's almost always difficult for them to go back to renege on some of these decisions. But we never say never because we have people working on the background. I know they are very astute Cameroonians, activists who work the phones, they work the letters and all that stuff, getting in contact with congressmen and senators and very influential people to see if this particular situation can be refixed. But again, you have to also understand that the Cameroon government is also the other side lobbying the U.S. government, telling them that okay, no, everything is fine and dandy in Cameroon. Let these people come back. But the thing is, there is no guarantee that they've not offered any guarantees that when these people come, they will not be persecuted. And we don't have any safe third country where these people can be taken to. I heard people saying they will take them to Libya. Again, I think Libya is even much more violent than Cameroon. It will be Cameroon is a signatory of the Refugee Convention. So too is America. They might not have acceded to all of its protocols, but these are not places where you should be taking people to because they are extremely violent. So you should not take it shouldn't be a point where you should take innocent Cameroonians to Libya because some of them went through that particular country. We've seen all the horrors that they went through, and you should not subject them to that type of treatment again. So again, we're praying for the goodwill of the U.S. government to see if they can rethink their position and reauthorize TPS for Cameroonians.
You said earlier that you know some of the Cameroonians who are affected by this situation personally, and you've certainly been speaking to some of them. What's their state of mind? How are they faring now in this very difficult situation?
Yeah, I mean, in general terms, I do represent lots of people, not just Cameroonian. But again, if you find yourself in this particular situation, it's extremely difficult. People go through lots of anxiety. They go through post um, stress traumatic orders, PTSDs. They go through all those things because even if you send them for psychological evaluation, that's what it is fear. There's absolute fear and anxiety amongst these communities within their families. Imagine a situation where you are the breadwinner, you are the father, and you have children and a wife in the United States, and the fear that every day that you sleep, they might come and knock your door and take you out. It's not something that it should be happening to an ordinary human being. It's a dreadful situation. Not to talk of if you now, because when some of these people that had been given final removal orders were in the United States, maybe the government did not know where they were. But when TPS came, what they did was they applied. Once they applied, they told the U.S. government that, okay, when you remove me, I did not actually leave. I'm still here in this particular state, this particular zip code, this particular city. So now, and this is where I work. So now you've told them exactly where you are. So once that program terminates, they will come right where you are because now they know your location. I'm not saying you should flee from justice, but again, I'm just telling you these are the consequences. And most practitioners actually told these people before they applied for TPS that these are the consequences. If they terminate this program, then you had exposed yourself. You told the government that you were here and they can actually get you. But again, it is daunting. It is very, very nerve wracking. It is something that, an ordinary human being should not go through because if you look at the treacherous journeys that some of these people take, we've seen images of torture on the Darien path here in South America, those going to Europe itself, what they go through the Sahara, going through some of those countries north in Africa, the torture that they go through. Then to come to the United States, for example, a beacon of democracy, a beacon of freedom, then you find solace, you find peace a little bit. And then uh, after some time, they have to send you back. It is really something that a normal human being should not go through. Again, we're appealing on the benevolence of the U.S. government to see if you can find protection for these people until when the situation back in their home countries become much more favorable so that they can go back in peace. You can send them back and they're fine.
Barrister, what is your advice to these Cameroonians who today in this very difficult situation? What is your advice to them? Some of them are listening to you now. What will you give them as advice?
Well, again, you know, it's just like we always say it in our dialect back there. I don't know. You cannot have you cannot have the cure in your wallet. Then you go around going to a soothsayer looking for a solution to what you have. I think before the TPS itself, there were solutions to these Cameroonians. Those who had gone through the asylum process, it was denied. It depends at what time it was. There is something also called a change of circumstances back where you are from. If there has been a significant change in a situation back in your country, you can always reapply again for asylum. And for those who were given TPS, and if you've married to a United States citizen, please go ahead and reapply for an adjustment depending on how you came to the United States, and so that you maintain some sort of status here in the United States. They don't come looking for you. If you have a child or a parent who is a green card holder or a U.S. citizen here in the United States, try to talk to these people to see how they can get the process going for you so that you are at least protected. But if there's not been significant change of circumstance back to in your home country, again, as I said, even if you've lost the asylum application, the process itself, change circumstances, they have not really exuded that level of freedom that you can go back. You can always seek for protection, whether it is granted or not. But again, you want to tell the U.S. government that you cannot go so that they can still take you back through due process. And in that process, you never know, they might have a change of heart and do something different. So that's what I would tell these people. And just talk to your congressperson, please. Talk to your senator. Tell them exactly what your situation is, because Congress writes the immigration laws and all the statutes. So those are the people that can actually influence decision. They can actually influence the president. He came on a mantle of, when he was campaigning, he wanted to get rid of people that are invading the United States. But again, you cannot, block the pathway for legal asylum when people are fleeing real dangers from where they're coming from, whether it's natural disasters, political turmoil, and you shut the doors for these people. So it's, to those Cameroonians, as I said, try to speak with a practitioner, see which other way you can find to get yourself immersed in the society in a legal process that might buy you time into the future, because these are all executive orders. A next president might come up and say, okay, I'll sign another executive order or something. The department, the Homeland Security boss can say, okay, we'll reauthorize it again, depending on the administration. Or Mr. Trump can have a change of heart down the line and see that there is so much pain and suffering extreme pain and suffering within this community, and reauthorize TPS.
Barrister, as we speak now, there are still several Cameroonians and other Africans embarking on the illegal journey in search of greener pastures in different parts of the globe, in Europe, in the United States, and elsewhere. What is your advice to young persons, Cameroonians, Africans, embarking on the perilous journey through the Mediterranean, through the desert, to get to Europe, America, and other parts of the world?
I think this question, it's actually predicated on what we had previously talked about the situation back in Cameroon and any other African country. We have to create the atmosphere. We have to create the institutions. We have to create a social structure of upper and lower mobility where our young people can transform themselves, not seeking, solace out of their countries or seeking solace out of Cameroon, but in Cameroon. I think if we have everything in Cameroon, we have everything in Africa. It's an extremely rich continent. The only thing is the will of the people, the will of the leaders to create the environment that's perfect enough for the children to stay back. Create an educational system that looks towards tomorrow. Don't create an educational system that is going to maintain in perpetuity a neo-colonial structure, because that's what's in Cameroon. The best schools in Cameroon are geared towards getting the colonial structure stay in perpetuity in Cameroon. If we can get rid of that, I think I listened to a podcast by the current leader of SDF, the Honorable Joshua Osei. I think he was talking about getting rid of certain institutions if he has if he has the opportunity to be made the president of Cameroon. So those are the type of leaders that you need. People are looking forward. They're looking at debilitating some of these institutions, create structures that young people can actually fit into. Again, we don't need a military leader. We don't need a tyranny in order to make this change happen. I mean, if you look at Burkina Faso, what that young gentleman is doing, it's phenomenal. It's Burkina Faso first. I'm not saying you need a military leader to run all this stuff. You just need somebody who is forward-looking, somebody who is patriotic enough. If that person happens to be a genuine Cameroonian in, within a political system, who is popular and everybody loves him, I'm not saying it's a military leader, then so be it. We have young, energetic people that you see in Cameroon that speak truth to power. Let them run the system, please. As I just said, there is the SDF chairman, he said it. There are institutions that he would change if he's given that opportunity, but he has to get to that mantle of power to be able to do it. So our children going through the Sahara, going through the Mediterranean, going through the Darien Gap in South America, some are being killed. Some you will never see them again because they are being smuggled. They've been slaughtered, maltreated. Some die and they are buried in deserts because you cannot wait for them. So these are things that we should not let it happen to our children again. Look at self. Look at yours. Look at yourself. Look into the mirror and see what land you're going to leave for your people and for your children. Is this what you aspire for power to do? If that's true, then I think your people will judge you. But if it is not true, please, I think the best way is to create institutions that benefit the young people, and especially the educational system. And of course, let there be freedom. Let there be freedom in the country. If there is freedom of expression, then the country will develop. Write laws that are beneficial to Cameroon and not to foreign corporations. Because if corporations come and tell you that this is how you have to write your laws, then you start doubting those people. I'm not saying you should not work. The world is the global village. It has to be a give and take, but don't always be at a disadvantage in favor of, an opulent minority, which happens to be the West, at the expense of your people.
That was Barrister AKUFOR Innocent ANENEBA joining us from Atlanta in the United States of America. Now, coming up, Cameroon is strengthening its cooperation ties with Israel. A group of Cameroonian authorities from the lower house of parliament is in Israel to work out new avenues of cooperation with the Israeli parliament. And we talked to one of the parliamentarians, the leader of the group of parliamentarians in Israel, but Honorable Njume Peter Abang in Jerusalem. And this is what he told us about it.
Yeah, we are here. That's why we are three of us. I'm leading this delegation of three parliamentarians from Cameroon. We were invited here by Knesset because we have a parliamentary friendship group, Cameroon Israel Parliamentary Friendship Group. So we were invited here by Knesset for a working and friendly visit. So we're going to be here for 3 days, and we have already had some meetings, some very instrumental persons here in Knesset, and of course the government. We were here yesterday with the Minister of Agriculture, and today again we are going to continue with the President, or rather the Speaker of the Knesset, and we are going to have discussions with other personalities. For us, it's a very, very important visit because, first of all, Cameroon and Israel already have excellent relations. And this visit is to also solidify the relationship between the Cameroon Parliament and the Israeli Knesset, which means this time around it is not only a matter of the excellent relations between the Cameroon government and the Israeli government, but also between the Cameroon Parliament and the Israeli Knesset, Israeli Parliament. So we strongly believe that with such a relationship, many avenues are going to be open for the two countries. And so that is why we are so excited to be here. And so far, I can tell you that since we came, we have had very, very exciting moments. And here now, at this moment, that we are here at this Holocaust Center, we have been able to get another part of a very exciting moment where we have been able to understand the very dark part of the people of Israel. A very dark history indeed, and it is difficult to understand why these people passed through such a very difficult moment in the hands of Adolf Hitler. But this is also an opportunity for us to understand exactly who these friendly people are and what they have been going through. Because it is not only a history of the Israeli people, but it is a history of hatred. It's a history of hatred between human beings. If I can just take a kind of an analogy, what is happening today in Cameroon, the extreme north, where the Boko Haram will enter a village and massacre a family, massacre a population, destroy us. So we start asking ourselves, for what reason are all these things happening? And you can see that it's a history of man. What happens to A is what has happened to B and what will continue to happen. So I think the conclusion, therefore, is that let us all fight to see that peace wins in the world. We should do everything possible to see wherever there is some problem coming up, where hatred wants to push up its ugly head, we should eliminate it. Because what happened, what we are seeing here, is unbelievable. It's terrible what happened to the Jews under the reign of Hitler.
That was Honorable Njume Peter Abang. And Israelites from communities close to the border with Gaza have suffered untold suffering in the war between their country and the Hamas terrorists. The response from Israel has also been devastating, and hundreds of families in the Gaza have been destroyed, thousands of persons killed. And we visited some of the areas in Israel affected by the conflict, and now we're telling you a little more about what is happening there in this report. Within the context of the visit of the United States President Donald Trump to the Middle East, One of the hostages of Israel has been released after being kidnapped on October 7, 2023, and surviving 584 days in Hamas captivity in Gaza. American-Israeli Edan Alexander finally reunites with his family in Israel. Many are still in captivity. Some were living in this community 2 kilometers away from the border separating Israel and Gaza.
The small community of 400 people that lived here in Kibbutz Nir Oz were attacked by hundreds of terrorists who came from Gaza. 150 Nukhba terrorists, trained soldiers of Hamas elite unit, came here attacking the Nir Oz community in order to kill people, murder people, and terrorize people. And after that, the terrorists were followed by hundreds of civilians who came here to destroy this kibbutz. They invaded the houses. They were participating in kidnappings of people.
The community in the Eshkol Regional Council in the south of Israel is characterized by images of horror, terror, sorrow, pain and destruction close to 2 years after the Hamas terrorist attack in this community and other parts of the country.
Out of a community of 400, on October 7th, 117 people were either killed or kidnapped to Gaza. In total, there were 76 kidnapped and 63 people were murdered. 51 were murdered on that day, and the others taken alive to Gaza and were murdered in Hamas captivity. So as for today, Nir Oz still has 14 hostages being held in Gaza by the Hamas terror organization. And these 14 people are a part of 59 hostages, Israeli hostages, that are people who were taken from their houses, from their beds, some of them, taken to Gaza, innocent people that are still being held by the Hamas.
The community is almost deserted.
The army still doesn't allow for the kibbutz to come back yet.
Away from here, the Nova Festival site has become a ground of mourning where people come to mourn the hundreds of persons killed by Hamas terrorists here on October 7, while demanding the release of those taken into captivity in Gaza.
These are pictures of hundreds of Israelites either killed or captured or better still kidnapped by Hamas rebels here on the site of the Nova Festival on the 7th of October 2023. The rebels stormed this area during the festival early in the morning and committed a lot of atrocities here.
393 people were killed in this festival, in this massacre. 44 people were taken hostage to Gaza. Some of them are still there right now. You can see their picture behind me. Unfortunately, this massacre wasn't only a massacre. We have evidence of women and men that was brutally raped here. People were brutally shot in their intimate places.
Here is the debris of hundreds of vehicles destroyed by the terrorists. Some were set ablaze with their occupants in them.
1,650 vehicles were brought to this place. All of them were attacked by Hamas terrorists on October 7th. 300 of them were completely burned. So the wall that you see, this monument of iron, steel, and rust, all of those vehicles were deliberately burned by Hamas terrorists.
Among the visitors coming from far and near to see the destruction caused by Hamas terrorists is an Israelite of Ethiopian origin who was caught amidst the October 7 shooting, bombing, killing, raping, and destruction.
I think like I was in illusion that never stopped because it was scared like I never scared like that in my life. It was crazy. I have post-trauma.
The war emanating from a land conflict between Israel and the terrorist organization Hamas is still on as Israel fights to release its citizens in captivity on the Gaza Strip.
and to protect its territorial integrity and citizens from foreign attacks.
Now let's have a broader understanding of the situation with the Deputy Director General, Head of Middle East and Peace Process Division in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Israel and former Ambassador of Israel to several African countries, Odette Joseph. Take a listen.
I think one of the biggest mistakes we would all do would be if we would see what happened since 7th of October as yet another milestone or episode in the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. I'm saying this would be the biggest mistake. First and foremost, and I think it's very important for me to highlight, our war that we're engaging is not against Palestine. The war that we're engaging is against a very extreme Islamist terrorist organization called Hamas, and unfortunately it's not only in our part of the world that we have elements of extreme terrorism that is based on extreme Islamist ideology, including in Africa, which I think and believe is becoming more and more of a challenge also in Africa. But going back to my point, the main point is that, again, we shouldn't see this as another episode in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. We should view it in a much broader context. And the indication of what happened since the 7th of October is a good illustration for what I'm saying. Because the day after the 7th of October, even way before we decided to wage a ground maneuver in Gaza, we had attack coming from Hezbollah. They artificially joined the war against Israel. Their initial attempt was not to be engaged in a full war with Israel because the Palestinian issue is not really what is ahead of their agenda. Their main objective of joining the war was to try and divert Israel's attention and energies not only towards Hamas, but also to try and engage us in other fronts. And I think the mistake they've done was that they thought that Israel also, because we had to wage a serious war against Hamas, they were under the impression that we will not take the right and necessary actions in order to deal with the ongoing threat that emanates from Hezbollah and from Lebanon and from our northern border. And I think now they understand they made a big mistake because we had to take the measures we have taken against Hezbollah in a manner that I think there are many military successes against Hezbollah as a terrorist organization. And I believe also that the developments that happened in Lebanon due a lot to what we have been doing against Iran's presence there and Hezbollah's presence there, brought Lebanon to a position today that they are out of their political stalemate. And if there's one area that I see some sort of an optimism in terms of our ability to try and utilize the new situation, namely, as I said earlier, the weakening of Iran and Hezbollah, I think there's the one area, one place is Lebanon, hoping that the new Lebanese government, with a new president, with a new government, with a new prime minister, will continue to take serious actions in order to eliminate the threat that also Hezbollah poses on their own internal interests, and we could broaden on that issue too. But this is one area that came on top of the immediate war that we had with Hamas.
Some Israelites are lambasting the government of the country, especially the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, over what they consider as a poor management of the situation at the expense of human life. They are asking that the Israeli government should stop the war, sign a deal with Hamas, and secure the freedom of the Israeli hostages. Now take a listen to Cohen Vicky. She's the mother of one of the hostages, Nimrod Cohen.
Even though he was a soldier, he was only protecting the border and protecting us, the citizens. and he's still my son, and I want him back home. I miss him so much, and we are in a point that we have the Hamas, who is our enemy, but we have also our government that insists on keep on fighting, even though the war is a risk to our loved ones that are still in captivity, and also risk our soldier. And for what? For no purpose, only for the purpose of our Prime Minister to keep his coalition and to stay a Prime Minister. And we feel that our government betrayed us, the citizen. Nimrod is a soldier, and the government put him where he was in his mission, and they have the responsibility to bring him back home. And no war can bring him back home. It will make only damage to both sides, and we believe that the only thing that can bring him all back home and all hostages that are still in captivity is only a deal. Stop the war, sign a deal, and bring all of them. It's what Hamas wants, this is their demands, and our Prime Minister needs to accept it.
And that's it for today's edition of the program. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us on this edition of The Inside. You can follow us on our social media handles on Facebook and YouTube. You can also follow the rebroadcast of the program on Friday at 5 p.m. Thank you so much for staying with us. God bless Cameroon. Goodbye.